Future Development Strategy Joint Steering Group meeting. Right, we're up to Table 7, and this is JJ to TT, as recommended in the report. Just find my spot. Predominantly around Tutanganui Master Plan. So look, we have the recommendations from officer recommendations from staff, and I'm happy to move them. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Harpiter. But I'll go to comments. So, Chair Kedwell.
Sorry, I just had a question first. Just asking why we have, numbers, JJ as well as QQ and RR. Because JJ is saying exactly the same as what QQ and RR. Is that problematic at all?
Sorry, just an unintentional duplication. So I think it's fair enough to consolidate JJ.
So which one are we going to keep and which one are we going to remove?
I think they're dealing with, I think they're dealing with slightly different submission points. JJ is talking about fragmented urban form, and then RR's, it's the same outcome, but it's a more specific submission, which is just remove the areas. But the recommendation's the same.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So I'm happy to speak to this one. I'd request that we separate out NN when we put the vote, please. I think this does...
M or N?
N for Nancy.
Okay. All right, thank you.
This goes back to my point about being really clear and consistent with the one plan about avoiding first before mitigating. By adding those properties in, looking at the maps that were there, there's very little land that won't be affected. And for me, it's about reducing risk. The flood maps that are being dealt with are, I think, only to a 200-year event, and we all know that bigger events than that are coming, so why would we construct or allow development to be constructed in a floodplain like that? And I'm also concerned about the downstream effects of the stormwater. It's fine to say that each of these individual areas needs to be stormwater neutral or have their own ponds, but cumulatively there's an impact, and I still don't fully understand how that impact is going to be dealt with. I'm really happy to support D and E being removed. I think they were areas of highly productive land that is also not flood prone, and in terms of thinking sustainably into the future and food supply and those sorts of things, that's a very sensible decision. And I think I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to support all of these recommendations. I think the officers have taken some bold steps, actually, in response to submitters, and commend them on that, because you don't always see such responsive actions after submissions, so that's great. I think it's important where we can to minimise impacts on individuals, and, taken together the submissions from individuals whose properties were impacted by the Te Tanganui proposals in D and E and to some extent C were quite strong. So I think it's very good that we've been able to provide them with some relief. So well done for that. In terms of the Bunnythorpe Business Park, I will be supporting that recommendation because I recognise that this is a higher level document that's not seeking to say that this is a suitable area for development, but merely indicating that this could be tested to see if it was a suitable area for development. And since it will cause less impact on people and property, to have that in the plan, I think that's a very sensible addition So I'm happy to support all of the recommendations. Thank you.
Councillor Harpenter.
Thank you. I'm also happy to support all the recommendations, and I was really pleased that the business park, as proposed by that group, was put in the way it was put in, and I think that was a really innovative suggestion by them, and I'm really pleased that the officers took that in. I'm really pleased to see D and E out. I really would have liked to have seen C out as well. I did listen to what the officers said about C, but Te Whanganui, for me, if it could get moved to another area, and I did listen to what the Chief Planning Officer said in terms that it could be done in 3 to 6 to 9 years, and understand that we do review this plan in every 3 years, so understand all of that, but you know, there is a large area of land, Area C, and I just don't think that, you know, this is going to be such a big project, and I do think that Area C has still got some productive parts in it, so I just think by sealing it off like we have and putting it into an area that won't be able to be used for a while for what we need it to be used for productive areas, it just makes it tough. So by putting Te Tanganui in there, it just makes it hard, and if we can move it to another area, I'd like to leave our options open so that we can move it to another area over time. Thank you. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
All right, thank you, colleagues. Look, I too, I'm going to support all of these, and I think the officers have been quite bold. We've been through many of these, haven't we, colleagues, where there has been considerable pushback, and the officers have supported. You know, an example is removing D and E. Also, the around proposed road changes or connection, I should say, connections to the foodstuffs facility is bold as well. I too am still out. The jury's still out for me around Area C, but I'm going to take the officer's advice that at this stage it's in. We still have 2027. We'll know exactly where we're going with other projects in the city. We'll have a lot more understanding of where Tutanganui is going, where some of its partners are going, and I think we can make another decision then. I just want to repeat, it is a high-level development plan, so it does need to be treated in that way, and we have to be pragmatic with some of these decisions as well. So again, adding the Bunnythorpe business park, again, it just gives an option. It doesn't mean to say it's happening, it gives us some options. So I'd ask you if you can take that in its totality, and we'll look to vote. What we'll do is we may vote on NN taken separately. We'll do that first if we could, and then we'll come back to the substantive. So this is NN first. And that has passed 3 votes for, 1 against, and right. We'll take the vote again. So we're voting on NN. Passed 4 votes for and 1 against. No, look, we will take the vote again. It's important. There's only 6 of us, so we've got to get this right. All right, we're going to take the vote again, please. And this is on NN. 3rd time lucky, people. Now passed 4 votes for, 1 against, and 1 abstention. Okay, we'll now get back to the substantive, which is around table 7. It's the remainder of JJ through to TT with NN excluded. So if you could vote on the substantive, please. And then it's passed 6 votes for. Thank you. All right. We now come back to any other final amendments you may want to make that haven't been sorted in previous. Councillor Gordon.
Thank you, Mayor. First I'd like to say thank you very much to officers for answering numerous questions that I've had today and appreciate the answers that I've been given. And I think, bearing that in mind, the one area I think I'd still like to put an amendment around some of the introductory comments, page 8 of the document of the FDS, and I guess the conversation and vote we just had sort of points to this, is that the boundaries on the maps give an impression, and what that means is important for the reader. And as we've gone through today, I think it's become more and more clear to me that while the FDS is giving some certainty, there is still a degree of uncertainty, and that uncertainty does still lie around some of those areas that may be not developable, if that's a word, within those areas identified for growing out, for example. There might be minor adjustments to boundary changes into the future as you go through district plan changes and rezoning exercises. And today I've heard around the need for further investigations and getting down to that detailed level prior to making any long-term decisions. So on that basis, and I'm open to having this wording amended to suit, but on page 8 I would ask that we add wording to clarify that boundaries in FDS maps are indicative in that they are subject, or they may be subject to change. Shall I slow down?
I wonder, as a suggestion, whether it could just start with that officers develop,
Yes.
that officers develop wording for page 8. Officers develop some additional wording to be included in page 8. That indicates the areas identified in the FDS will be are indicative and will be sorry, I'm going on with are indicative and will be refined as part of subsequent planning processes. I mean, so that won't be the wording, but we'll come up with some paragraphs or a sentence or two that's, flows with the document, and that will come back to the joint strategic. As an aside, all the changes today we will update in the FDS and circulate back as a copy to the joint working group, steering group, to see, and we'll include that some additions on page 8.
Thank you.
Okay, so moved by yourself, Councillor Gordon. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Hupperter. Yep. All right. We might. Is there any further comments to this? I think it's quite. I mean, I'm full of grants with it. So, Chair Kidwell, that you've got another one, have you? Yeah, okay. So, all right. Well, look, if there's no further comment, you don't need to write a reply. Yeah, good. All right. Look, we'll vote on this additional motion as it stands. And if you could vote, please. That's passed 6 votes for and none against. Thank you. Chair Kidwell.
I just wanted to ask a further question around how we can address the concerns expressed by Rangitane around the stormwater strategy or the lack of. And I know it is referred to on pages 73 and 74 of the strategy, but it's, and yes, this is a high-level document, but do we have timeframes that could potentially be incorporated into there, i.e. could we say that it will be developed in time for the next review of the FDS? I see that it's a significant concern that was raised and just trying to work out how we could address it.
Through the chair, I understand that Rangitane officers are involved in the preparation of the stormwater strategy currently. I'm not close enough, I suppose, unless my other fellow officers want to provide in terms of whether it would be prepared in time confidently for the next review. I'd anticipate it would, but I'm not close enough to the scope of the project to know if it actually would.
Yeah, it's a broader issue that's actually raised its head through the LTP process as well as the FDS. I mean, we anticipate that a stormwater strategy framework will be developed to inform the next LTP and FDS. So, look, if the joint group wanted to pass a resolution indicating that they saw that as important, an important piece of work to inform the development of the next FDS, and I think that's an appropriate sort of policy signal from this group that it's an important piece of work. It's, you know, I've mentioned in the chamber and other forums that it's increasingly becoming a significant issue anywhere where we turn for either infill development, intensification, you know, capacity, those sorts of things. So yeah, it's going to be a high priority in the next 3 years. Well, before then, to inform the next FDS.
Okay, I would like to suggest a motion then that I mean, whether I need to add the words or I can leave it to officers to do it, but essentially on page 73 or 74 in that section to, to indicate that the goal would be to complete that strategy prior to the review of the FDS.
Yeah, it could be, I mean, so I'm thinking on the hop here, Hannah, but it could be a recommendation from this steering group back to council.
Yep, that would work for me as well.
So it could be something like that prior to the that the Palmerston North City Council develop a new citywide stormwater strategy prior to the development of the 2027 future development strategy.
All right. So moved by yourself, Councillor Kidwell, seconded by Councillor Harpiter. All right. Is there anybody else wishing to?
Can I just speak to that briefly?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Just this from a Horizons perspective, and I think this is the benefit of doing the FDS joint between the city and the region, is that the region's focus is very much on the flood management aspects of this plan, this strategy. There are so many questions still that need to be answered to be able to inform the future development of the city because of these stormwater and flood risk questions. And that was highlighted very clearly by Rangitane in their assessment. And I have a lot of concerns that without a comprehensive strategy, stormwater strategy, we may end up encouraging development in areas that we will regret later on, and I certainly don't want to see the city doing that. It was one of the first questions I think I asked this group at our first meeting that we got together, is what is the cumulative effect of, if we did all of this development, where would all that stormwater go? Where's the linked up thinking here? And I really hope that the stormwater strategy will provide some of that linked up thinking in the future.
All right, I'm happy to support this. I don't think it's totally the domain of Horizons. We have quite a good handle on our own stormwater system, and it's not just Rangitane, it's everybody, although Rangitane are very important. I don't share quite the same concerns that Chair Kidwell has, but that's fine. We can agree to disagree. But we do need to, we are tightly constrained to develop here anyway, so we just don't stick things on any piece of land. We've always had, and we've just spent 10 million of the first tranche of previous government's Three Waters money on stormwater, and we've spent many millions on understanding what our network is and upgrading where we can. But you are right, we are built on a floodplain. We have to accept that too. So that comes with some risks, but also it comes with some knowledge too. So I think this is sensible. We've got to have some sort of stormwater strategy. I do think people immediately jump to we're not as bad or as terrible as some people may think we are, and that our assets are in reasonable order, but they are in some places at near capacity. So it's just understanding where that is. I think a strategy is wise. All right. Would you like a right of reply? All right. Okay, we'll vote, please. Has passed 6 votes for and none against. Okay, are there any further? Councillor Gordon.
Thank you. I just would like to check in, if I may. I've mentioned a couple of times the maps and referencing back to source of data and date of data. Can I just check that I didn't see an officer recommendation in here, only one regarding specific maps, but across the board, could we make a recommendation that request officers to add the source and date of data to each of the maps in the FDS, please?
I'd be happy to second that. I think there has been criticism that both councils operate off different sets of maps, and that may be true, may not be, but it'd be good to understand what we have got in terms of documents. I've had former councillors from both councils actually come to me with very old maps saying this is what is on here, and it's got 1948 on it or 1965, and things have moved on. So I think that's a really good additional recommendation. So, Councillor Gordon, are you happy with the wording of that? I think it should say reference this. Sorry, I'll let you speak for it. Yeah. Great. Okay. If no further comments, we will vote, please. That's passed 6 votes for, none against. Thank you. All right. Are there any further additional motions? Okay, there being none, we'll look to number 2 of our recommendations in our substantial, and this is around the Joint Steering Group recommend the final draft of the Palmerston North Future Development Strategy 2024, incorporating changes agreed above for adoption by our respective councils, Palmerston North City Council and the Horizons Regional Council. I'm happy to move that, seconded by Councillor Johnson. Again, if I could just acknowledge the officers, and Rebecca, thank you for your work behind the scenes to pull all this together. I just want to come back to our original comments around the city's vision and that the city does need a development strategy. We're not punch drunk on growth like some other bigger cities are by any means, and I think it's shown in our balanced approach in the strategy around growing up, growing in, growing out, and having some village growth. And although it is our first FDS document, and there's been, I suppose, some collective understanding on how we get to it all, I think at the end of the day, it's been pretty good, and just want to acknowledge everybody that's played their part. It is a high-level document. It is very much macro rather than micro. There is a number of challenges there. We have to acknowledge and admit there is risk in that. But by the same token, the city is, we sort of know where we're going, and it's a case of making sure that we've got the resources and that approach, balanced approach to get there. So I'll leave it at that and invite anybody else to comment if they wish. Chair Kedwell.
Thank you. I'd like to start by acknowledging the work the staff have put into this. I appreciate it was probably a bigger job than first anticipated, hence the timeframes and the very tight turnaround. So there's a lot of learning in there. I think it's a really good first attempt. I personally think it would have been better if we could have taken a bit more time and refined it further. And I hope that someone's taking notes for how to do a better job next time round, just in terms of what we've learnt in this process. I think it's also the first time, or correct me if I'm wrong, someone, that the two councils have written a joint strategy. And I do think the fact that Horizons submitted to the plan indicates that it feels a little bit more like it was written by the city with input from the region. So figuring out next time round how we can balance that up a bit more would be useful. I also think it doesn't, because it's the first time, it's the first one that's been developed, it feels a little bit more that it is a strategy that has been written almost to support what's already in place, rather than a strategy to inform direction, which is where I think the intent of it is. And I think that next time round, as it gains legs, it would hopefully take that role a bit more. I'm just keen to hear what others have to say, because with those changes that I proposed that weren't included, I do feel very strongly about those that we have that wrong. And for me, I'm struggling to vote for this. I'm considering whether I abstain, just because I don't know if I can recommend it to my council. I'd like my council to make their own decision, but interested in other views around the table.
Councillor Harbour.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank the staff for all the work that you did do in this space, particularly with what else was going on at the same time. 145 submissions received in this, and we also had 32 that came and actually talked to us, which I think was really, really incredible. So thank you very much for all that hard work that you have done to get people here to engage in this process, which I think is quite a tough thing to do when we've got two councils that have got a long-term plan that are going on at the same time. So well done for all that work that you've done in this space for us to get this over the line in this time frame. I think that it's a good document at the level that it's at And it's at that level because we need it to be at that level for our city. So thank you for all that work that you have done, put into this document. Really appreciate it. And thank you for putting us through this process because I appreciate it. Thank you. And I will be voting for it.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm actually quite satisfied with where we've ended up. I don't agree with Chair Keedwell's comments that it's just describing what we're doing already, because I think when you look at the changes that have been made as a result of submissions, they're very significant. I would say they're the most significant changes I've ever seen during a consultation period. So I think it's really unfair to say it's just confirming what we're doing already. The result of this process has resulted in a significantly different plan going forward, both in terms of identified residential areas, in terms of the number of sections that we've identified that are available, in terms of the areas that have been identified for long-term industrial growth, both removed and added. So there are a whole lot of additions and changes that have been put in as a result of submissions, and I think it's a stronger document for that. So I do feel it's quite unfair to say it's just confirming what was being done already. It certainly is not that. Secondly, I'm struggling to see why, if you've been involved in this process from the start, had input into the draft, had the opportunity to comment on the draft, had input at this point, and listened to submissions, that you would choose not to support this to your council because the table that you wanted amended hasn't been included as an amendment. Even if that table had been included as an amendment, it would not change the outcome in terms of a balanced growth strategy. So I find that a very strange position to take, I must say. I do think that it's been a useful exercise. I've found it very useful from a planning perspective. And I think actually it will be helpful to maybe do more of this joint planning rather than less. I know it's a little bit painful. Well, I found it a bit painful. But I actually think we've come to a better outcome as a result. And so leaning into the pain, I would say, we should be thinking of doing more joint planning, not less, because we've actually got a better outcome here, people. So please support it. I think it's important.
Councillor Gordon.
Oh, thank you. I will try and keep this brief. I think just reflecting back on some of the questions that I've brought to the table today and at some of our previous meetings as well, and of course what the submitters have brought to us. And I think through this process I can see, certainly this is a high-level document, and through the questions from submitters, I can see that the nuances and there are refinements to come. And I've been satisfied with the responses from officers and the explanation of that, particularly around the rezoning and plan change processes, RMA processes, and for example, my questions on the Palmerston North strategies, such as the Eco-City strategy, the water plan, city vegetation framework, hopefully I've referenced that correctly, around canopy, etc. And of course the development of the stormwater strategy that's in train. And I guess that's given me some level of confidence that this is how those components, those sort of potentially more of the environmental components that submitters have brought to our attention, how those factor into decision making from here, how they fit within that jigsaw puzzle that the FDS sits sort of at the top of. And so I've been really pleased to have the opportunity to ask those questions and to speak with submitters for clarification. I think that I'd like to commend officers and the councils for the great level of consultation that has been undertaken in reflecting on the number of submissions received and the larger number of people that have come to speak to us, and I thank them too. In terms of the process and working together, I think what this has highlighted to me actually is the importance of us working together more so in the future, and looking at ways to improve those linkages. The map data is just one example of where Horizons Regional Council provides, you know, a treasure chest really of information that's on the ready if needed to help inform your investigations for whether they are plan changes, rezoning, or whether they are private plan changes. The information is there, and I think that through the submission from the Regional Council, you've seen that they are ready to input into the processes as need be. So I'll leave it there. I don't know that that was that short, but thank you for the opportunity. It has been a learning opportunity, and I do feel I've arrived at a very comfortable point in this process. Thank you.
Okay, just to round up, look, thank you everybody for your comments, and look, I think it's been a really worthwhile exercise as well. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't realise you've come in at the 11th hour. Councillor Tukinahe.
I'm good at being tailoring Charlie. Usually I make my best speeches when I'm on my feet. But since everybody else has taken the opportunity to do a bit of a review of where we're at and put it on the record, I thought, well, we should do that in its fullness. I agree with the support that's been given to officers. I think that given the circumstance of trying to do long-term plans at the same time, we've done a reasonably good job, you know, and that's not playing it down or in any way. It's been an absolute privilege to be over here and work across councils, and it's not easy, but it's a hell of a lot easier than having to go through lots of points in a submission from the other council. So I just wanted to say that, you know, we've made it easier on ourselves doing it this way. There are some learnings, and I think that we should take those into consideration when we do this again, because if that's what's being indicated, then that we should learn from what we've been through. And some of that is just making sure that we've got everything set in terms of knowing one another's views on how we draw the baseline or the beginning of the plan together. And we should take some time to nut that out more. But putting that aside, I think that when we go into anything like this again, it'll be great to have the time to actually walk the land so we can understand where some of these submitters are really wanting to make sure that their future is really taken into consideration as much as future generations. So I have to commend the City Council for looking into a strategy that looks at future generations. So I will be voting for it.
All right, thank you, Councillor. I think we've got everyone now. Look, just write a reply there. I just want to acknowledge that it has been good working together. Sometimes just different understandings of different plans too comes into space. We don't have a huge amount of, other than the top level of the one plan, understanding, but by comparison, there's been some gaps too in some of the city plans as well, and understanding of it. Development needs compromise at times, and also takes leadership. You know, sometimes we have to put the personal view aside for what's best for the city. City councillors do it every week. So I would hope that we do get a unanimous vote for this. And I do think existing documents, both regional and city, have been taken into account, and just want to acknowledge that that has been a lot of work for both our city councillors especially, and also the regional officers. But look, I just want to repeat the vision, and it's really important that the city does continue to develop, because if we don't, there's only one way, and it's not forward, it's backwards. So it does need to have he iti rā, he iti panamu. It's got to have some ambition. And look, I'll put that to the vote, and I please ask you to support it. Thank you. And that is 5 votes for and 1 abstention. All right, we now go to, we've finished the meeting formally, and I'd invite Councillor Te Kenehay to close us with a karakia, please. If you could just push your button. Thank you.
I am on my feet. It's been, like I said earlier on, an absolute privilege. I'm very pleased to see that we're still using tikanga Māori in this chamber. It's very important given the history of Te Marae o Hene. And in that respect, for the support that we've given one another, and also being looked after while we've been here. I just have that in mind when we're saying this closing karakia. Whakarunga ki te manu korori korora, kororo tia mai no tua whakarere. Whakarunga ki te manu e kore ki ana, i te ata, i te ata, i te awa te. E te matuni tarangi, anei o punanga, e whakamoimiti ki a koe i te mutunga o tō tātou hui i tēnei wā. Tēnei hui hei whiriwhiri i nei āhuatanga o te taone nui o Papai o ia. Tēnei āhuatanga o i nai nei, taino ki ngā whakatupuranga e heke mai nei. Tēnei te inoi i roti te ingo tōtama me te wairua tapu. Āmene.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks to the team for today.